On a scorching summer day, the relentless sun beamed down as I received a call from my nearby residing son, Ethan. He expressed a desire for me to join in the celebration of our grandson Caleb's 5th birthday. Armed with a carefully chosen gift alongside my husband, Robert, I made my way to Ethan's house. Upon ringing the doorbell, Ethan, upon opening the door, subtly signaled with a nod that I should contribute to the party preparations. Suppressing any unease, I utilized the available ingredients in their kitchen to prepare dishes for Caleb, the birthday boy. As I arranged them on the dining table, aiming for a vibrant display, Ethan's wife, Sarah, interrupted, stating that it was sufficient as they were expecting friends soon. Confused by her remark, Ethan chuckled and advised me to leave the gift and depart swiftly. Feeling somewhat embarrassed, I cast my gaze downward. Robert, observing the couple's behavior, whispered that this might be the last time. Reflecting on my own educational journey, I recognized that society often harshly perceives those who drop out of high school. While I never regretted my decision, societal judgments sometimes weighed on me. Fortunately, Robert, with his impressive academic background, never judged me based on titles, teaching me that true elites don't solely assess others based on education. Married to Robert, we became parents to Ethan, believing in shared parenting responsibilities. However, due to strong requests from Robert's parents, they took a significant role in Ethan's upbringing. Gratefully accepting their offer, I later regretted it as it seemed Ethan had two sets of parents, impacting his character negatively. When we disciplined him, Robert's parents tended to spoil him. As Ethan matured, his arrogance and selfishness became apparent. His reluctance to face challenges and his biased judgments seemed to stem from the dual parenting structure. This behavior intensified after Ethan graduated from grad school, openly disrespecting me due to my educational background. Recognizing that not everyone shared Ethan's attitude, I drew strength from Robert's kindness and refused to let Ethan's words affect me. However, I couldn't shake the concern that his behavior might alienate people. Despite contemplating discussing it with Robert, I hesitated, realizing that significant change might only come with a major event. Despite my reservations, Ethan entered a new phase in his life after graduating from grad school. He joyfully announced his intention to marry Sarah, an elegant woman he had known since high school. Though Sarah, like me, had dropped out of high school, Ethan showed no disdain for her background, contrary to some past experiences. Excitement filled the air as we decided to gift them a lavish photo shoot to celebrate their union. This gesture symbolized our support for their journey together. At first, I believed Ethan's choice of a life partner signaled growth and maturity. However, reality hit when Sarah called for help with their malfunctioning vacuum cleaner shortly after they began married life. Suppressing initial thoughts about contacting the manufacturer, I headed to their high-rise apartment in downtown New York. Upon reaching their room, I was surprised to find both Sarah and a child inside, someone I hadn't met before. Assuming it was a relative's child they were looking after, I refrained from mentioning it. The purpose of my visit was to inspect their faulty vacuum. As I opened it, I discovered that the filter was completely clogged. While replacing it, I couldn't help but wonder if they were aware of the need to change filters regularly. The vacuum started working smoothly again, and Sarah, genuinely surprised, thanked me, admitting she didn't know vacuums could get like that. In that moment, I questioned if she was joking, unsure of whether her ignorance about vacuum maintenance was genuine or a playful remark. As I glanced around, I couldn't ignore the laundry haphazardly hung up and the wrinkled tablecloths. It dawned on me that Sarah might not excel in household chores, a trait I hadn't noticed during our initial meeting. Anticipating potential future calls for basic household matters, I decided to provide Sarah with a brief tutorial. Sarah, I began about the vacuum filter, only to be interrupted by her casual response. Oh, when it gets full again, can you take care of it? Taken aback by her nonchalant attitude, she continued, Ethan told me that if there's any trouble, I should just get you to handle it. Speechless, I realized that even Ethan's wife, Sarah, regarded me as little more than a maid. Despite Ethan's history of looking down on me, I never expected this from his spouse. It became clear that Ethan had been communicating his dismissive attitude towards me to Sarah. Reflecting on my misguided assumption that Ethan had matured because he married someone without a college degree, I felt ashamed of my previous naivety. From that point on, whenever Sarah felt lazy or uninterested in household chores, she exploited Ethan's willingness to summon me to finish all their tasks. Late evening calls from Ethan became routine, usually requesting me to make dinner, clean up, or expressing a vague desire for something American, which entailed burdensome shopping in preparation. Once I was tasked with babysitting, only to discover that the child I had previously seen at Ethan's house was Caleb, Sarah's 5-year-old son from her previous marriage. Unaware of this detail during our initial meeting, I refrained from probing into their past and simply followed instructions. While Caleb wasn't demanding during babysitting, the frequency of these calls became the real issue. Despite having my own plans and commitments, I found myself summoned day and night by Ethan and Sarah. Any delay on my part resulted in an earful, gradually leading my life to revolve around their needs, extending beyond household chores shared with Robert. This added responsibility took a toll on me, and sleep alone couldn't alleviate the growing fatigue. Not wanting to burden Robert, who was busy as a company CEO, I attempted home exercises and self-massages, acknowledging my limitations as an amateur. One summer morning, amidst frequent broadcasts warning of smog and heat stroke risks, I felt unwell and spent an extra 30 minutes in bed. Robert, accustomed to my routine, noticed and expressed concern. Although our trust was strong, I hesitated to admit my ailment. Eventually, I turned down his offer to accompany me to the doctor, instead requesting a day of rest without chores. However, even in my weakened state, Ethan's phone continued to ring. Answering with a weary body, I was instructed, as usual, to clean and look after Caleb at Ethan's place. Wanting to uphold my promise to Robert, I informed Ethan about my condition and expressed my inability to come that day. Ethan, dismissing my right to refuse, asserted, "We've got an unavoidable commitment, so you better be here," hanging up before waiting for my response. Despite my fatigue, the thought of leaving little Caleb alone compelled me to push through and head over to Ethan's place. Upon returning home, I discovered that Ethan and Sarah had already left, leaving half-eaten dishes and scattered branded clothing everywhere. With a weary body, I forced myself to clean up, letting out a sigh. However, as I finished the dishes while keeping an eye on Caleb, I started to feel increasingly nauseous. My vision slowly blurred from the edges, and eventually, I couldn't stand any longer, collapsing in the kitchen. Caleb, engrossed in coloring in the living room, was unaware of my condition as I lay on the floor, my only ability being a weak awareness. I couldn't even call out, helplessly curled up. Knowing Caleb's focused nature, I realized he might not look up from his coloring for a while. I strained to move, hoping to at least get some water, but my efforts were futile. The more I struggled, the worse I felt, and my consciousness began to fade. At some point, I thought I'd finally find peace. Then the front doorbell rang, and Robert entered the room. Seeing me, he gently picked me up, expressing concern. He assured Caleb, "I'm gonna take your grandma home, okay? You'll be all right by yourself." Caleb, looking worried, nodded. Robert brought me to his house, hydrated me, and carried me to bed. Apparently, in addition to already being unwell, I had become dehydrated due to accumulated fatigue. With shallow breaths, I managed to apologize to Robert, saying, "I'm so sorry for being a burden." He shook his head silently, squeezing my hand. Reflecting on the moment before heading to Ethan's house, I felt relieved that I had quickly informed Robert. Despite promising to rest at home, going out felt like betraying Robert's kindness. Having updated Robert just in case, true to his word, he arrived to pick me up from Ethan's place after wrapping up his work. His timely presence couldn't have been more comforting, and feeling safe in bed, I drifted into a deep sleep. Upon waking up at dinner time, I felt rejuvenated after some rest and hydration, heading to the kitchen to prepare dinner. To my surprise, a meal, likely prepared by Robert, was already set, waiting to be served. Spotting Robert engrossed in a magazine on the couch, I expressed my gratitude for his thoughtful gesture. Noticing I was up, Robert looked up with concern and asked, "You all right?" I replied with a thankful smile, saying, "Thanks to you, yes. And thank you for preparing dinner." Chuckling, Robert said, "No problem at all." The relaxed atmosphere as we finished dinner on the sofa was heartwarming. As we settled in, Robert broached the topic of Ethan. Feeling that the problem was no longer mine alone, I decided to open up. I explained how Sarah struggled with household chores, and Ethan consistently delegated tasks to me. I shared the challenges of managing my health, especially due to the responsibilities dumped on me, including caring for Caleb, Sarah's son from her previous marriage. As I spoke about my own inadequacies, Robert crossed his arms, putting a hand to his chin in deep thought. Unsure of what was on his mind, I awaited his next reaction, fearing disappointment. However, when he looked at me again, his expression was calm, suggesting that I should stop visiting Ethan's place. From that point on, I received frequent calls from Ethan, but I chose not to respond. Despite feeling sorry for Caleb, I recognized that I wasn't their housekeeper and couldn't overexert myself, especially after causing worry to my dear husband. After a few weeks, a different kind of message arrived. A birthday party invitation for Caleb's once-a-year celebration. After discussing with Robert, we decided to attend and celebrate together. Upon reaching Ethan's place on the day of the party, he immediately instructed me to prepare a lavish meal, a task I anticipated. I looked up easy party recipes online and started making dishes like gratin, potato salad, and vegetable broth soup. As I laid out the colorful spread, Sarah, smiling, mentioned that their friends would be arriving soon, implying that my role was limited to cooking. Despite their worsening attitude, I held back my anger for Caleb's sake. Joining in with Sarah, Ethan chuckled and suggested I drop off the present and leave. Feeling ashamed, especially in front of Robert, I looked down. Robert, quietly observing the situation, murmured in a barely audible tone, "Well, it's gonna be the last time this year." Ignoring Robert's comment, Ethan urged me to leave quickly. Unable to directly celebrate Caleb's birthday, Robert and I left Ethan's house, overwhelmed with guilt. Quickly apologizing, I was met with Robert's firm response, "No, it's him who's wrong." He then drove me home before heading to work. Left alone at home, I sat on the living room couch and soon fell asleep, unable to resist the sudden wave of fatigue. I wished to forget the shame I caused Robert as soon as possible. A few days later, around 7 a.m., the doorbell rang, accompanied by the sound of heavy footsteps. Ethan burst into the room, yelling about being transferred to the regional planning department. His face reddened to the point where his veins bulged, and it seemed Robert had given Ethan a transfer order. Calmly responding without changing his expression, Robert explained, "It's the consensus of everyone." The truth revealed that after Ethan graduated from graduate school and struggled to find a job, he joined Robert's company through connections. While Robert's character facilitated Ethan's employment, his unsatisfactory work performance caused problems for everyone in the company. Ethan's inability to produce results at work, coupled with his misuse of company funds for personal entertainment and golfing, had been an ongoing issue. Robert had repeatedly warned and urged Ethan to improve, but his son remained unresponsive. Ethan's unreasonable demands towards me seemed to be the last straw for Robert. With the company's impending international expansion, Robert decided to transfer Ethan to a regional miscellaneous task department with the support of the executives. Robert, who had always believed in people's capacity to change, had held out hope for Ethan's sincere improvement. However, Ethan's consistent lack of growth seemed to have exhausted Robert's patience. The transfer marked a significant fall in Ethan's standing both within the company and his family. When Robert explained the reason for the transfer and told Ethan that he wouldn't recognize him until he cooled down and repented, Ethan trembled. In a desperate attempt, he warned Robert about not seeing his grandson again, referring to Caleb. However, Robert stood firm, revealing that Caleb wasn't their real grandson, with no blood connection. Robert explained Ethan's current situation, revealing that the luxury condo and company car Ethan used were owned by Robert. This implied that Robert was aware of Ethan's frequent disturbances towards me. Instructing Ethan to pack up and leave, Robert emphasized the consequences Ethan might face. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Ethan began to apologize profusely, but Robert, known for his decisive leadership, remained unmoved. As Ethan limped towards the exit, Robert sternly told him to grow up and not blame the child. Ethan's transfer to Nebraska followed, and a few days later, he called seeking help with credit card payments, revealing Sarah's misuse of his card. Neither Robert nor I were willing to assist until we saw a genuine change in Ethan. This marked a shift in our approach, choosing not to enable his irresponsible behavior. As I hung up the phone, I reflected on Ethan's current struggles, acknowledging that he was now experiencing the real world's challenges. While I felt a bit guilty for putting pressure on Sarah, considering our role in shaping Ethan's character, I believed in the concept of karma. People find happiness through compassion and personal growth, not just through surrounding themselves with luxuries. With my newfound freedom from Ethan's constant summons, I embraced a new hobby, trying out various baking recipes and sharing photos on social media. The positive comments I received boosted my self-esteem, and I felt more fulfilled than before. Meanwhile, with Ethan's transfer, the previously struggling department Robert oversaw regained momentum. The company's rapid growth contributed to Robert's increased recognition in the CEO community. I celebrated Robert's success and held hope that Ethan would one day undergo a sincere change, realizing it was all done out of love. When that day comes, I'm open to cooking a meal for Ethan and his family.